Hey guys, what's up? Basically, this is for all my friends I was talking to recently about the Kwite allegations. Just wanted to clear a few things up, to make sure that you guys know about everything that's going on. So today we're here to watch a little bit of his video to clear some stuff up. Yeah, let's get on with it. Also, let me know if you guys like this camera setup for viewing content. I should probably make myself a little bit bigger. What's up, bro? But yeah, here we go.
This is my response to several allegations made against me, the most serious of which being that I sexually assaulted a former friend and ex-partner of mine named Orion in Orlando, Florida on February 18th, 2018. This is patently false and completely untrue. Not only did I not...
So yeah, basically that is the main part of the allegations, is that Kwite, this guy, raped a transgender person named Orion, who was a big fan of Kwite's channel when he was younger. I say when he's younger, I mean like 2017, 2016. Basically said a whole bunch of shit, like how Kwite took inspiration from something that Orion said without quoting anything, and Orion made a whole bunch of sprites for him to use that he never did. And also that, like, you know, Kwite verbally abused him, emotionally abused him, and a bunch of other things, but Kwite goes through it in detail a fair bit more.
Not assault Orion. I never had any sexual contact with him in any way, shape, or form. I have a lot of evidence to share backing what I say in this video, including a recording of Orion giving a testimony of this exact interaction from late 2018 that directly contradicts his current version of events. I've prepared what I have to say ahead of time, as this is something I wanted to make sure I had my thoughts in order for when discussing, so if you see my eyes flitting back and forth, that's why. I intend this as a comprehensive look at my time knowing Orion and afterwards.
I want to skip ahead a little bit in this intro, but yeah, Orion didn't have a bunch of evidence, so a lot of people were quick to jump on the bandwagon to hate him. I might have been one, because, like, there's so many weirdos on YouTube that it honestly doesn't surprise me when another one comes out. And I was quick to jump on the bandwagon after talking about it. I feel bad about that now, so that's why I'm trying to make this video, so that, you know, you guys, my friends, know about it. Because I would hate to stay wrong, you know, make comments and then never correct myself on it. But yeah, anyway, it is an hour-long video, so I do recommend that you watch it yourself. I'm going to cover mainly the essay allegations, I think, or at least let him talk about it.
For my own things, went out with friends, and around this time is when YouTube was first doing well for me, so I knew I'd have money coming in not far down the line. This made me want to pay for my own things the day before on something as relatively small as a kiss, but despite my hesitance, I did kiss Orion once. That's it. That's all we ever did.
Yeah, so he explains that basically Orion had offered to buy him as a gift for one of his family members or something like that, and it was right when YouTube was making money for him, so he had enough money to do it, and Orion kept offering to, and Kwite was trying to refuse, but it led to basically, I think, Orion saying, hey, you have to give me a kiss, and then a few weeks later, at Black Panther, which is where the essay story was said to have happened, that's when he gave him the kiss, because it came up then, and that's because he felt pressured into.
One of the screenshots Orion used as proof of his claims is literally Orion floating and initiating the idea of us hooking up when we see each other, and my response is being unsure, then stating a reason why I wouldn't want to do it. He also cropped out the next message where he's the one to push for it even further by asking if I have condoms. You could read that as him trying to give solutions to a problem that I brought up, but I personally didn't want to continue with that discussion because I wasn't comfortable. Orion says that we had been on and off flirting and talked about how if we were both single and virgins, we would take each other's virginity. This is not something that was ever formally and fully agreed upon from my end, and much less as something we do at some specific place or time. The virginity thing was first mentioned over half a year earlier in August 2017, where Orion was the one to originally propose the idea in a voice call, and I was the one who wanted to think on it further. While I don't have a recording of that call for the exact wording, Orion specified that a heart message he sent was platonic, and in response, I joked that it didn't seem very platonic, just straight up gay. That's because...
Yeah, so definitely seems like Kwite has the messages or the receipts to back up what he's saying, basically that Orion was actually the instigator. And he goes into a little bit more depth where basically he has performance issues because he's very nervous when he's in such an intimate situation with somebody. So yeah, he explains that. He's basically saying it like, you know, he still didn't figure out the issue with that, so it would be hard for him to figure it out suddenly and be able to perform that act. Yeah, and he's still a virgin too. He claims. I mean, I can't just walk up to him and check him. You know, he plays a testimony in 2018 that was posted by Orion, basically counteracts a lot of his claims today, and like it's just dates are completely wrong, I believe, and stuff. They don't bring up SA at all. They were like, oh yeah, it was a good time, and then they bring up like, you know, what Kwite had said about Orion when he cut him off. Basically, during that he never said anything transphobic or anything, and it was actually the transphobic thing that Orion accused Kwite of saying was actually something that Orion had said to Kwite earlier, describing himself. So, and then he goes into basically the only thing that could be taken misconstrued for him saying like a slur is a Lebanese communist, which is basically because he was researching it for a video or something at the time, and he just thought it was a funny string of words to say, and he admits that, yeah, that could be seen as, you know, a derogatory thing to say.
Of it. I'm not sure the reasoning for this part, but the history of this video's availability and publication status is notable as well. The original title in 2018 was Giving Kwite the Axe, Terms of Service Breach and More, and then at some point in the last few years between then and now it got unlisted. That is until recently, when these new round of allegations came out, where Tusk republished the video with a new title, Giving Kwite the Axe, Transphobia and More. A notable thing to do.
Yeah, so there was also a video made by Tusk, but let me see if I can pull up that. There it is.
But it's a mistake he makes every time he mentions what year something happened in.
Orion.
We started to get really, really close. Especially around about summer of 2016, we met up in my home city.
When that actually happened was in summer 2017. Orion's current version of events agrees with me that we had first met both online and in real life in 2017.
Cut to planning to VidCon. We met up in February of 2017. Cut to February where we met up for the second time, and I remember it was February because we went to see Black Panther.
Yeah. Orion implied Black Panther came out in 2017. He says cut to February 2 separate times, but only mentions what year it was once. He either means that I met up with him only the one time in February 2017, which was when we would have watched Black Panther, and is objectively untrue, or he added an...
Yeah, so basically he kind of disproves that. Here he shows basically that Orion was actually the one crossing his boundaries the entire time, and shows messages basically showing that, where Orion used him as like an emotional crutch. To basically was just relying on him to emotionally support him, and always talked about, you know, Kwite leaving him and like forgetting about him when Kwite gets bigger, and Kwite was like, no, you're my friend. But also he would have emotional down spirals where, you know, he was talking about how his parents were basically abusing him, and it was a bunch of wild drama that was kind of used to, I think, guilt Kwite into talking to them more. So I just want to show
boundaries and my sense of safety in that moment. You might argue, did you really care if you told Orion you had a crush on them the next day? But that wouldn't change that this was not the case.
That was a weird one to start on, but basically, at one point, Kwite did say that they had a crush on Orion, and then broke it off later because he realized that he was just not in a good space to do that. So he cut it off like 2 days after they had agreed to quote unquote date, which was shown in Orion's basically allegations was the fact that Kwite had said that he was allowed to tell people that we were dating if they were close to me, but he was being really cagey. That's basically what he's talking about here, where they were dating for like 2 days, and that's why he said that. And then he was like, no, I can't do it. But there was also ones where Orion was talking about, having, as you saw earlier, bring the condoms, talks about basically doing stuff with Kwite, and Kwite never really responds receptively too much. Even sometimes he does, but it's awkward thing, and it was simply like a kiss thing. And he talks about how he limited the amount of communication because that was also in the thing, because he was trying to distance himself from Orion because Orion, it was emotionally draining and dramatic. Kwite had a better mental health when he was not talking to Orion, was actually making good friends and feeling good hanging out with other people, and he realized that he did not like hanging out with Orion all the time, or Orion that much, because every time it was just all about Orion kind of thing. And yeah, Orion's codependency and stuff.
Orion says that we were close and would mutually confide in each other in ways that were beneficial to both of us. And while we did both confide things in each other, the idea that this was an equal dynamic and not heavily skewed in the direction of Orion dumping heavy emotions onto me is absurd. And the idea that we mutually benefited from it is completely ridiculous. I'm going to give another spoken content warning here because this subject matter in particular is grim. Warning for graphic discussions of self-harm, discussion of many forms of abuse, suicidal ideation, and topics in that vein. This is a hard one. Me and Orion have very different accounts of what I said to him when I cut him off. Orion claims I attacked him for immutable characteristics he couldn't control, like his gender identity, and I maintain to this day that I criticized his character and behavior and told Orion I was removing him from my life because of the way he acted. We do agree on one thing I said, though, and it's that one of the reasons I gave to Orion for ending the friendship formally was that he was codependent towards me. I know he vouches for this because he mentioned it in that old video.
He proceeded to berate me and call me all kinds of really bad names and to call me disgusting and too codependent and needy.
And he complained about it on his private Twitter the day after we fell out. When someone sees you as their best friend, typically they go to you first with their problems. That's not codependency, you absolute tool. Maybe to an extent that's true. I think it's a nuanced thing, but that's just not what Orion was doing. On February 2nd in 2018, before we met up that month, there was a conversation me and Orion had that I feel encapsulated the nature of our friendship and how Orion viewed me over the course of it. We had a short text exchange where I said I was busy prepping for a podcast I was about to stream and that I had a video to edit afterwards, so I didn't really have the free time to hang. I let Orion know I was busy and I got back to it. A few hours later, I'm wrapped up with the podcast and Orion hits me with, "Hey, can I ask you something?" Apparently the thing that brought this on was that when Orion listened to the podcast that day,
so basically this is
the
the part I was talking about where it's like,
essentially I had
me
gotten along with them so well that it made Orion scared I wouldn't be his friend anymore. In other words, the sight of me having other friends or even being friendly with other people came off to Orion as a threat to our friendship. A message like that.
Yeah, basically, if you get jealous because your friend is hanging out with other friends or has other friends, one, I think that you need to kind of look internally and see why you are really upset, because I understand getting upset if your friend doesn't hang out with you or doesn't invite you to something. Yeah, it kind of sucks, but I think you also have to understand that people are just as in-depth as you are. They have lived a life just as long as yours and just as complex. They probably have friends outside of you. You can't expect to be the only one that takes their time, because that's kind of just manipulative. It feels like you're trying to isolate a person, and I think if you have that kind of dependency on somebody, it is not the healthiest of mindsets, I guess. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong down in the comments. If you disagree with me, let me know. I could be completely wrong. Sometimes when I speak, I don't actually convey my ideas fully, or sometimes I'm just wrong. Maybe like I said, I have a completely different life. I've lived completely different experiences, so I'm willing to learn, though, from other people's experiences. So let me know down below in the comments if you think I'm in the right, or if you disagree with me, and explain why. I would love to know. But yeah, so it's codependent, and then continues on that. Talks about how Orion called it a social transactional video, and talks about the idea for the mask and the hoodie. And here he shows one of his older videos before he even met Orion.
16, celebrating 500 subscribers.
How y'all doing? Hello and welcome to my 500 subscribers.
celebration.
As you can see, I've put in a lot
So
of
the
effort
hoodie
to
thing was
ensure
always
the
there,
audio
and
quality
it
of
was
the
a
video is
hoodie.
top-notch.
A time and milestone
Hoodie
I hit
mask
a month
combo.
before ever first speaking with Orion. There's even older, though still now deleted, examples of me appearing as the exact character Orion drew in those sprites. It isn't something he could have come up with either. I have the original hoodie I used to use here. It was an old brand that had both a hood and a turtleneck that you could pull up to cover your face. It came like this. And the sun say if he...
So basically, he talks about how the mask came into play because he was going to try YouTube for a full-time job right after high school, and he needed to increase his sound quality to do it, because recording in a thick-ass turtleneck, it's kind of hard to do for sound quality. At least you kind of need a good microphone like this. I mean, it might not be good, to be honest. Like, it's the first time you guys are hearing about it, probably, because this is probably going to be the soonest video out, even though I have an Oblivion one in the works, and I might have a podcast coming through soon. Man, I hope my voice sounds good in recording this. Otherwise, you guys are going to have to suffer through it. But yeah, so he does talk about
he did something wrong, as well as a mutual friend of ours shooting me a DM about how badly Orion was dealing with this. That eventually pushed me into giving Orion a call to at least try and explain my reasoning. My logic was that Orion had called me that day already, so I'd just be returning a missed call. Plus, he literally asked me to tell him if he did something wrong, so he must be at least open to listening. And while I can't narrow it down to one event that made me drift away, I could at least tell him honestly what I was feeling and try to close this chapter in both our lives in a productive manner. While in that call, I did my best to maintain a level head and communicate to Orion what I was feeling and my reasoning for wanting to move on from him, like he had asked me to. But I never got a chance to express that fully or in the way I wanted, because Orion would talk over what I was trying to say, often immediately denying what I said before I could finish. And then he'd shoot back with his own criticisms of my character. At one point, Orion said he'd noticed a pattern of me distancing myself from my old friends, and that it wasn't just him seeing it, but mutual friends of ours too. Again, I never had any of this said to me by either of the people mentioned, especially not Cap. I could. I very well could do so.
Yeah, and then he was talking about how he could Orion was talking about how he escalated by, like, dropping a whole bunch of secrets and a whole bunch of stuff that he knew about Kwite, and it was just kind of, like, toxic as fuck. That's all I gotta say. Lord Brown, I didn't bring that up with anybody, so, and yeah, Orion's attempts to reconnect, so apparently he tried to talk to him again.
The thing is, despite the way he claims I treated him all the time, right after we put a lid on our differences, Orion floated the idea of trying to be friends again.
I definitely recommend watching this video if you haven't yet, if you really want to get an in-depth explanation, because I'm just covering light topics.
Even if it was just to get this whole thing over with, I at least decided to give it a try. For a period of time, I genuinely tried to DM amicably with Orion again. Most of these conversations after that call took place over Twitter DMs. I can only prove my side of the conversation is real, as Twitter archive viewer is busted with Orion's side of the conversation. It only works up to like May 2017, and their Twitter is suspended, so I can't go just directly to it. What I was able to grab was Orion's side of the messages by digging through the actual files themselves. I've lined Orion's messages up with the screenshots of the DMs I've sent to prove that at least my end of the exchanges in these logs are real, but the only way I can even get an archive of what Orion said is through control-Fing his Twitter ID and the direct messages JSON file. And full disclosure, these are relatively easy to fake. You can load them up in Notepad. If you're skeptical because of that, it's totally fair, and if anybody knows a way I can verify these, please let me know. Regardless, I believe the messages I can prove that I sent still paint the nature of these conversations fairly accurately. Orion talked about how getting to be friends again was a knot in his chest going away that he didn't realize was there. He said he had thought of this scenario before he went to bed tons of times.
It happens so often, you know. There was the whole situation with fucking Lion Maker, EDP 445, Shane Dawson, Onision, like a whole bunch of motherfucking weirdos on YouTube, and you know, it's not like we saw Kwite's face ever, and it was. I feel bad. I'm sorry, Kwite. I'm sorry I doubted you. I understand why it took you a while to get all this information. So there was also some weird like screenshots that were going around about Discord messages that Kwite had sent out. I'm starting to think that might be a fake, but it was like talking about family. It was like, don't worry, there's a response coming soon, and then he's like, haha, check out this Family Guy clip, and it was like, what the fuck, dude? Why you respond like that? But yeah.
That I'm not sure how I feel about being friends again, that I'd give it a try, but I can't to their own evidence at all. And multiple times have leaked my private info, most recently in such a huge and public way. Orion accused me of doing the worst thing you can do to somebody to him as another escalation. And he put my face out there against my will with the label of rapist attached to its reveal. I have been genuinely anxious to go outside, and the chances of this actually happening were relatively small. But what do you usually want to do to someone when you think they're a rapist? Not very positive things, I imagine. And on some level, Orion was okay with that possibility. He completely stole my agency and privacy away from me, and there are ways I will never recover from this. Having to go over these logs to make my case has been emotionally painful, and while people saying awful things about me on the internet is not new, it was happening now more than ever, and the types of things people would say was a lot crueler. It took him going this far, but after 6 years of trying...
I will say, I didn't say anything on the internet, but that's the reason why I'm making this video, is that even though I didn't say anything negative on the internet, I said things negative in public. Well, not public, in my private circles. And my private circles also watch this. So I figured that I'd at least make this video and say, hey, you know, Kwite's actually a pretty good person. Even if I can reach a few people that he normally wouldn't. I mean, I doubt it. I probably will get like 10 views max. But I would want to spread the positive message of, hey, you know, I believe Kwite probably came out and, you know, showed some real receipts, showed some real evidence, and I think he proved his point. I think he really refutes all of the points that are made, and there's not much left, but a Slazo situation I didn't talk about to people, so I don't know anything about that.
What Orion had said about my character in the past, but considering that this video exists, that piece obviously didn't last. So I'd like to track one of the people who's always had a generally negative opinion of me that Orion later befriended, and how the severity of the reasons for disliking me escalated over time. First, this guy said I was getting less attention than I used to, and this was right before my blow up. Almost a year later, he's in my Q&A replies asking a somewhat genuine question. When I hit 500,000 subs, he's telling me, this is your peak and you need to face reveal, otherwise you'll never grow more. And even with all that, they still said they couldn't judge me personally, even though they didn't like my videos. But he still hates my thumbnails and thinks very negatively of my viewers. In 2020, they upgraded me from a shitty YouTuber to a shitty person in general. And at some point, they started feeling this strongly enough that if they saw me mentioned anywhere, they would go out of their way to say how much they hate me. And it was a few years later where the Hail Mary finally dropped, where in early 2022, unprompted and in a reply thread completely unrelated to me, this guy...
If you were wondering, what he's saying in the background is content discretion be advised, basically. I think I'm going to move myself down so that it's not as... I don't think there's anything that's going to pop up.
I was the first person to ever call me a rapist. This was the first time I'd ever heard anything like this being said about me. And I'm very caught off guard because I have never even had sex before. They alluded to... me being a supposed sex pest one more time, saying it to folks whose tweets I'd used in my videos, and it became apparent that this whole thing was an event that they'd been anticipating. The day the allegations dropped, they said, Kwite's only hope now is stop Asian hate. In my opinion, in a situation like this, that is very out of line. To me, it demonstrated a confidence and satisfaction in my suffering that had been brewing for a while. They were even in my editor's replies, instigating with someone who had nothing to do with these allegations other than having some serious things completely unsubstantiated, both directly to people who enjoyed my content and in a wider public setting, regardless if it was relevant to discussion, to how they've been taking public. All that is emblematic of the lengths Orion has been willing to go to try and hurt me over time, and how when one option failed, there has been seemingly no upper limit to how far they'll take it if it means that it will cause me harm in some way. Orion is not just saying I raped him, he's throwing every negative thing I could have possibly done to him at the wall to try and get anything to stick. They went for transphobia, sexual assault, are ways I will never recover from this. Having to go over these logs to make my case has been emotionally painful, and while people saying awful things about me on the internet is not new, it was happening now more than ever, and the types of things people would say was a lot crueler. It took him going this far, but after
I want to say, Kwite, forgive me, you caught my ass with receipts.
I want to say that please go support Kwite at least a little bit, but don't hate on anybody. I would hate for you to do that. I'm not trying to do that in any means when I make this video. This video is just literally to correct my previous opinion and to kind of give an update to be like, hey, this is what happened. And it seems like at least Kwite has proven his point. He got a lot of screenshots. So I'll end it there. I'll let him say his parting words and get you out of here.
Stuff happened. I have laid out my case here as best as I can. I talked about a lot of personal things before I was ready or never planned on sharing, but I hope this has helped to give a more holistic view of mine and Orion's relationship. Truth be told, if this video gets across how I hope it does, it would only be to get back to a spot worse than where I was at before. Being called a rapist or a sex pest is a label that's probably never going to fully leave my name now because of these allegations and how far they ended up getting despite having no legs to stand on. There are several people I was friends with, or at least friendly with, who distanced themselves from me over this that I may not get to talk to again. And I can't really blame them for that. I understand why they made those choices. At one point, I made the same choice in their position. Hearing that somebody you know, even on a surface level, might be capable of one of the worst things you can do to someone else is terrifying. I just ask that if anybody who is in that position and distanced themselves away from me because of this whole thing and you're watching this, I would really appreciate the chance to get to talk to you about this and try and sort things out. But if not, I understand why. This has dredged up bad memories. My face was put in the public against my will, as well as a wealth of other personal details. Pretty much everything I put into maintaining my privacy and trying to be just a normal person outside of YouTube is just kind of gone. I'm going to be taking some time off, at least a month. I don't know when or if I'll be back. I'm not entirely sure if this whole thing or the nature of this job is for me anymore. That's all for now.
Might have lost the creator on the platform, sadly. But, yeah. I hope you were informed. I hope, you make your own opinion. You can always look it up, find it on Kwite's channel, find an actual video response. You can also find the probably actual DMs unless they've been taken down. But I'm sure that Kwite has shown it in his video. And actually, I know he did because I did watch it previously before this. But, yeah. If you like this kind of style of content, leave a comment down below. Be like, hey, I like your commentary style videos. If you don't, let me also know, because frankly, I think I'm trying to work on getting better at content creation, and how else am I going to figure out without you guys telling me? So yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks. I hope you guys subscribe, and I hope you like the video. Or dislike it. I mean, whatever floats your boat. But yeah, see ya.